30 Days of Prayer. In her dynamic Christian devotional, Rochelle Khanna, licensed clinical social worker, health advocate, and speaker, provides a personal healing retreat for women seeking pain relief from autoimmunity, including lupus, arthritis pain, MS, and thyroid diseases. This collection focuses on ways to use prayer to gain strength while establishing a pain management plan. To find out more and get your copy today, go to 30daysofprayer.org.
Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests, with host Christina Nichman.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Savvy Central Radio. This is your host, Christina Nichman. Each week on Savvy, we host successful individuals and business owners, inviting them to share their dreams, stories, wisdom, and lessons learned in their field of business. Today we're joined by Lionel of Lionel Media. He is a legal analyst and news decoder. In the first half of our interview, Lionel and I discuss what makes our current financial system tick in the United States. In the second half of our interview, we cover current events, government, and social ills. Lionel, I was grateful to discover your lively commentary, which I recently came across on Pix 11 in New York City. You're one of the few individuals I've seen on television that deliver to the public without restraint important and controversial current events Americans should know. This February on Savvy is Finance Prosperity Month, and I thought you would be the best person among few to share with our podcasting audience important facts and details about money, our financial system in America, and the history of American currency, where it's been and where it's going. So to get started, what makes our current financial system tick in the United States?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Pardon me. And what makes it tick? Let me answer that in the negative. What makes it not tick? Complete and total ignorance by folks. Many people believe. They don't really have anything to believe. When it comes to money, they think money is just there. It's like water. You turn the faucet and there it is. You don't really know where it comes from or who's involved in it, who purifies it, who monitors it. You're just used to it. And it's always there when you need it. And Americans have not had a very serious problem since the 29 and the Depression. And there have been some stock market problems here and there. But it's ignorance that will kill us when it comes to being nescient and being ignorant. So what makes money tick is basically understanding what it is. There is no such thing as money. It is imaginary. It is agreed to. It's not gold. It's not bullion. It's basically a fiction that we all agree to abide by. So that's rule number one.
Mm-hmm. So basically, it's sort of like a financial value that we put to this paper thing called paper notes, money, that we trade value for.
Precisely. And what's interesting is that if you want to see what happens to money, look to Europe. Look what's happening in other countries. Look what happens when you devalue currency. Look what's going on in Russia. Look what went on in Portugal and Ireland and Iceland. See, Americans believe that we are impenetrable. Nothing can bother us. Nothing can get to us. Nothing can ever affect our way of living, our standard. And we don't understand the problems that are looming. And if I could, there's some things I think we need to discuss that Americans should really, pay attention to. In fact, all people should, but Americans in particular.
Tell me, what are they?
Well, first of all, I'm going to do a little test. We all have a friend of ours who everybody knows, a pain-in-the-neck expert friend, the guy who knows everything. The person who claims to be a news junkie, the person who is, where you see him or her, you think, oh, God, here she comes, Miss Know-It-All. So what you do is you do as follows. You go to a friend of yours and say, listen, Christina, you're pretty smart. In fact, if anybody would know this, you would. And you start off with that. And they smile. Because after all, Christina, you're a news junkie, and I know you read newspapers, and you're very aware. So here's my question. What exactly is the Federal Reserve? And just wait. And watch their eyes flutter. And watch them say, well, it's... and they may come up with something about it. They set interest rates and that sort of thing. In fact, the best line ever was, the Federal Reserve is as federal as Federal Express. It's a private central bank. And if you ask them, well, what exactly does it do? They have no idea. Who runs the Federal Reserve? Can the president or the Congress overrule the Federal Reserve? The answer is no. No. How about that one?
Wow.
The president can elect or nominate chairman, Yellen or anyone, Greenspan before that, and Bernanke. But if the Federal Reserve chairman decides to do something that's just insane, there is no oversight, which is contrary to our basic system.
Now, why? Now, I saw here, Michael Maloney, I don't know if you're aware of him, The Secret of Money. He's what brought me to become aware of the Federal Reserve and find out a little bit of what they're about. And interestingly, Lionel, I'll tell you, a number of years ago, I went to the Democratic convention, and I met a number of individuals. One guy at the table was ranting and raving and saying the IRS is crazy and they're stealing our money, and the Federal Reserve is evil, and they're not even federal, and they're all this stuff. And I thought, quite honestly, he was crazy. I just put him out of mind. And it wasn't until I saw the videos by Michael Maloney that I started to, question, say, well, what is all about this Federal Reserve? Tell us more about how they came to be. How are they controlling the flow of currency in our country? Is there anything we can do to revert that?
Well, it's funny you say that, Christina, and this is important. I have met people as well. Now, let me give you an example. I am, by definition, not religious per se. I'm irreligious, but I have very many friends of mine who are devout, and they're very nice. Their faith is very important to them. Now, I know other people who stand on subway platforms and talk to Jesus at the top of their lungs. Now, one's insane, one's not. It's not the subject matter that makes the person insane. It's the insanity that makes the person insane. So when you meet somebody who says, the Federal Reserve, don't you understand? I also meet people who are, quote, conspiracy theorists. For example, there's no global warming. It's all HARP. It's all engineer. Okay, fine. Now, it's not that the subject matter, there is something to what they're saying, they just don't understand it. So what happens is a lot of times people discount the notion of the Fed and that sort of thing because of this. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913. It was a Christmas a Christmas break of Congress, and they kind of just slipped it in, the secrets or the mystery of Jekyll Island. And basically, it was the chance for private central bankers to control the currency of this country. It's not the Treasury. It's basically these people. Now, you can argue from abolishing the Fed to, I think, what Ron Paul wants to do. Other people, like my friend Webster Tarpley, would like to nationalize the Fed. That's another thing. But the idea is that our government has no control over this private industry. Let me give you an example. Ask somebody, Christina, if they would not mind if a private central group decided when we went to war. They would say, what? Or if they decided our healthcare policy, not the Congress, they would say, you can't do that. Well, that's what the central bank is. That's what the Fed is. So aside from that, there are other issues. It's not going to be abolished soon, but I want people just to understand it. And I want everybody to ask, what's the Federal Reserve? Where is it in the Constitution? Does it, and that's also a trick, because there are some things that are not contained in the Constitution, like the Air Force, or how many justices are in the Supreme Court. Not everything is enumerated, but these are just questions. So the first thing I want your listeners to do is just ask the question. Ask, and I've got to tell you this much. My wife and I we know a lot of people here in New York who are really, many of them are really heavy hitters. I mean, Wall Street, very serious, fat cats and the like. They can't answer the question. They have no idea. So just learn about that. What is the most frightening situation in the future? And by the way, let me go back before I forget. Whenever the Fed decides it wants to control inflation, deflation, it can basically control the amount of money that's issued, interest rates, and the like. When it decides to artificially pump up, to buy back, instruments and bonds, and to artificially pump and inflate the economy into the quantitative easing programs, QE1, QE2, not the Queen Elizabeth, not the ship, but what happens is that is terrific, but many people are suggesting, are you artificially buoying and raising, if you will, the economy artificially, so that when people say, hey, the Dow's at 25,000, is it really? So listeners, number one, what is the Federal Reserve? These are your assignments. Number two, learn about QE, quantitative easing, and what that means. And here's the real scary one. Instruments are critical in terms of what's sold and what's bought. Leases, bonds, stock, corporate indebtedness, corporate debts. Stock, I own a stock in Christina Corporation. It's an obligation, fine. Those are terrific. Derivatives came around, and no one can really explain what this is. Remember, we went into the credit default swaps, credit default instruments, which led to that horrible collapse. There might be between $1.5 to $4 quadrillion representing the derivatives amount that has been created out of what I don't know. When that comes tumbling down, or the structure cannot be supported anymore by these artificially created instruments, what happens to the world democracy? What happens if you have been artificially pumping the Christina dollar, the Christina note, the Christina euro, the Christina Deutschmark, whatever this thing is that you've created, almost like a currency, but you backed it with nothing. And you've artificially created confidence, and there's nothing there. It's another concern. It's most frightening. I'm really going to make your listeners most happy when we get done with this.
Well, I've been seeing around the world a number of overinflation and what it's done to the economy in different countries, and it's quite scary. And you're right. I think a lot of Americans think, well, that won't happen here. It can happen overseas, but never in the United States.
Right.
Yeah, but why do you think the Federal Reserve and the central banking system is so dangerous, especially to a democratic republic such as our own?
Well, not so much that it's dangerous in and of itself, but if we were to nationalize, if we had a national treasury, that would be terrific if we had control over it versus turning it over to someone else. Let me tell you another problem we have. We have a group of people, we have young people who are looking at $1 trillion in student loan debt before they even get out of school. It's $1 trillion. Now, I want your listeners also to look up and investigate something called the Wall Street sales tax. It's also called the Tobin tax. It's also called the Robin Hood tax, and it works like this. In the world of finance, Wall Street, we give it that metronym, Wall Street. If Apple stock is bought, sold, I mean, during the day, especially with high-speed trading, a stock could be bought and sold, I don't know how many times, back and forth, in bunches, lumps, individuals, in mutual funds and individual stocks, shares. Every time that is bought and sold, it's not taxed. So if you were to do a 1% or 1/4% or 30% of a sales tax on exchanges, transactions, that could very well be equivalent to, in a short amount of time, the national debt paid for. Why doesn't Wall Street pay a sales tax? You do. I do. Why is it exempt?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've heard that mentioned. Why? But it's very interesting, and this would bring up a whole new topic, is that majority of the people who make it into office, much of their campaign dollars are funded by the corporations.
Correct.
Are getting the wonderful sales tax break. So it kind of leaves the conundrum. How do we eliminate that so that, because now they can't go and pass a law for sales tax because they'll be opposed by the very people who got them in office.
Oh, absolutely. Let me tell you, to show you the power of, again, we call it just Wall Street collectively. You've heard of course, Bernie Madoff.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why do you think Bernie Madoff went to prison?
To be made an example, perhaps, for a bigger entity?
Right. Because he targeted and victimized the 1%. If Bernie Madoff had been a part of that MF Global, okay, the collapse of MF Global ultimately led to a shortfall of $1.2 billion of customer funds. He lost it. What happened to John Corzine? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're Bernie Madoff and you do that to the 1%, then it's a different story.
Wow. Well, that just brings me, Lionel, to the next question I had in mind, which is we've heard that a majority of the entire world's money is handled by just the 1%, and a very few people are controlling the entire world's money. Why is that so? How did it come to be like that?
Well, look, I don't want necessarily people told that you cannot make X amount of money. I don't know how you're going to do that. I think it's more of a barometer. For there to be such a discrepancy, such a difference, that's another story. That's something that, unfortunately, we're now getting into the oligarchy. We're getting into the very, very few controlling everything. You also have to ask people these questions. Who is it who runs the government? Who is it? These are issues which transcend not just economics, but I think one of the biggest facades is the idea of the left-right paradigm, Democrats and Republicans. I personally don't care whether it's Hillary or Jeb Bush or you. I think that, and I truly believe that the role of the president is scripted in 25-year increments. And it's like, if you don't like Hamlet, don't blame the actor, blame Shakespeare. The actor's just basically reading the lines, and you might like one performance over another. So I know this is not really an answer to your question about the discrepancy in who owns it.
Yeah.
I don't want to redistribute wealth. I don't like that. That's, if you say, okay, if Christina Corporation, if you make 9 million times the salary of your workers, well, there are ways that we should perhaps maybe address that. Maybe they shouldn't work for you. Maybe they might want to try someplace else. But I don't want to wrest the control from you. That looks a little totalitarian, communistic.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, Lionel, it's more in line perhaps with the entire mindset of most individuals that they can't be part of that sect, that there's kind of a divide between the have and have not, because really you don't have to have not. You can be part of the haves, but I think it's that the idea that we have a less than, that there's people that has greater than, and we give them maybe more power and more glory. We maybe just hand that over to them.
Yes, it could very well be. But I also like is are people who think that somehow they could ever be a part of that. We're not talking about billionaires. We're talking about mega. Let me also give you another consideration here. And that is this. Have you ever heard of a group called the Bilderberg?
Yes.
Okay. Now, for the longest time, people say, oh, God, there you go with that Bilderberg group, another conspiracy, you and your crazy conspiracies. But what about Davos? Well, that's different. Davos. That's different. That's kind of in the open. For the longest time, since 1954, the Bilderberg group has met secretly since 1954. And for the longest time, not only did they deny the existence of this group, they said, you're crazy. You're insane. It doesn't exist. This is just how do I say this? This is just another conspiracy theory. You're not, okay. One year they decided to create a website. They went online. They said, okay, here we are. There's something called the Logan Act, which prevents private citizens, or actually people in the government, from meeting with members of other organizations. In fact, Hillary Clinton, believe it or not, years ago, there was a suggestion that she might be in violation. But this law forbids the unauthorized citizens, I guess, from negotiating with foreign governments. And that's kind of what this is. The Logan Act is still there. Another thing that people don't know about. So not only, Christina, do we have people who are exceedingly rich, we have people who may not be the richest in the world, but who have more control than you could ever imagine in terms of power. How do you even address that? So,
yeah, I think it's a little scary. And I think the reason why conspiracy theories and all that stuff is kind of thrown around is that, well, conspiracy just means one or more people gathered and talking in secret.
Correct.
And we do that every day in our family, don't we? We are behind closed doors doing our own thing. But
yes.
I think what really scares people in the United States is the thought that the few who has majority of the wealth and the resources are sitting behind closed doors deciding our fate. Of not just the United States, but of the entire world.
Precisely. And they also feel embarrassed that they don't know anything about this. Whenever you talk to them about this, they will oftentimes say, after all, there was something to this. I would have known about it. Well, you don't know about it. Well, you see, one of the, Gore Vidal was one of my favorite writers, and he was a real curmudgeon and just stuck his thumb in everybody's eye. I thought he was terrific. And he had three things he said about conspiracies, which I love. The first one I've adopted as my own. He says, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm a conspiracy analyst. And there's a distinction. Theorizing means there may or may not be something there. No, there are conspiracies. They do exist. The next one is, it has become almost an article of faith that there are no conspiracies in this country. And the third is that conspiracy theory has become almost a code word for the unspeakable truth. Whenever something is so horrible, whether it's 9/11, whether it's GMOs in our diet, whether it's vaccines, whether it's deep state, parallel governments, whether it's, name it, just UFOs, it doesn't matter. The government never tells you anything. John Pilger said, never believe anything until it's officially denied. So you cannot help but believe in conspiracy theories because of the fact of what the government has done. You may not be old enough. I mean, it doesn't really matter because I wasn't old enough for World War II, but I know a little bit about it. But I just missed the Vietnam War. I just missed it. And I was luckily to be too young, but I mean, not very far. And that was 58,000 people who were killed, Americans. Forget wounded, forget psychologically scarred, and nobody can explain why that happened to this day. To this day, we're not even. And I listen to lectures. Why did we do that? I don't know. Because somebody didn't sound the alarm. Somebody was worried about being a conspiracy theorist. Somebody went along with a ride. And somebody did not say, wait a minute, this is wrong. This is, you're not leveling with us. We need more people to be conspiracy theorists. We need more, whether it's financial, whether it's political, name it. And you can pick the issue, whether it's from Charlie Hebdo to American Sniper to propaganda in movies. But we in this country care more about Deflategate and football pressure and nonsense, absolute nonsense. We will talk forever about that, but not something as critical as this. Take, for example, not to interrupt, but have you been following the Greek elections with Tsipras and Alexis Tsipras and Syriza, the anti-austerity movement and the euro?
No.
European alternative media, foreign media have been all over this. Nobody in our country ever talks about this on nightly news. Ever. Never.
It's completely sad because it's true. I always say to my friend, it's kind of like we've been infotainmenized, is what I call it.
Oh, yes.
It's everything's about entertainment. Let's talk about Kardashians or whatever, and and just think about what happened here in New York and the East Coast this past 2 days with the mega storm coming our way, June.
Yeah, Juno.
Yeah, and
Right.
oh my gosh, the fear and the hype and all this energy for something that turned out to be a couple inches at least here in New York.
And yes, well, and but also the reaction, Christina, that people showing anger over the fact that it wasn't a blizzard. If you if you went to a doctor and your physician said, "Listen, I'm worried about this this lump in your neck. I want to do a little biopsy, do a needle biopsy, fine aspiration. Let me just check." And your doctor says, "Good news, it's benign." What do you mean it's benign? What are you, crazy?
You had me scared.
You made, yeah. It's like, what kind of a doctor are you? Yeah. I'm a good one. Well, it's benign, idiot. Wait a minute. No, it's good. So we've lost that. There's something that's called the Hegelian Dialectic. I don't want to get too, but it's this problem reaction solution. And this is, it's also a thesis, antithesis, and it's a different story, but it works like this. You and I run the country, and we're sitting around, and I say, well, Christina, they're too happy right now. They're too happy. This is not good. Let's do something. Let's scare the heck out of them. Let's create a problem. Mm-hmm. What do you have? Well, I've got these people that I know that we can fund them, and they will go and they will detonate a small bomb. Nobody will be hurt, but it will do coverage. But somewhere in, I don't know, Times Square or something. I know they're going to do it. I have my either FBI, and I'm just saying this. I'm just being hypothetical. But I know who they are. We can do this. It'll happen. And we go in and we will scare them. Now, that's the problem. Next, the reaction. Help us! Make us safe. Are you sure? Yes! Make us safe. Okay, here's the solution. You're going to have to give up a little bit of your civil liberties, your protection, your privacy, but I'll keep you safe. I'll do anything. Do it. Ta-da! Problem, reaction, solution. It works like a charm. And whenever something happens, whatever, Americans will turn to not Big Brother, but their father government and say, do anything. Please help us. Please. It does. And Americans will not question anything. Look at ISIS. I know this has nothing really to do with the financial, but that the parallels are so perfect. Have you seen some of these ISIS videos that are so bad, nobody believes them? They look like they're photoshopped and green screened all over the world. Everybody says, wait a minute. Where is ISIS? Who is ISIS? Bomb them. Where? Where are they? It doesn't matter. So, and if we bomb them, that means somebody's going to make money with armament, with weaponry. So anyway, it goes back. Now, I can't get people to worry about money and the stock market and collapse and austerity programs when pension funds go dry, when your 401k is evaporated, remember in Cyprus how Russian banks were basically pilfered in Cyprus? They just took them. Pension programs being ransacked. Nobody thinks that can happen here. They don't understand. They're worried about terrorism. They're worried about people with masks and knives and beheading. But they're not worried about that because they always think like the water's always going to be there in the faucet.
I think it's this invisible fear that you can't really trace, that they're scared of, that's perfect. And a good friend of mine always says, if any catastrophe or crisis happens in the world, watch to see how the authorities react. And if you all of a sudden start seeing civil liberties being stepped on and stuff, then beware, is this real or is this fabricated?
Oh, you conspiracy theorist, you. Listen to you. How dare you? Here's one for you, the 1033 program. You're familiar with what's happened with that as of late? Somebody along the right, we have in this country something that I want your listeners to pay attention to. It's called the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878. And what it does is it provides for a firewall, a distinction between civilian law enforcement and the military. In our country, just after the Civil War, our forefathers, Washington, Addison, did not even want a standing army. They were very suspicious of having an armed group of people that they said, we know how revolutions happen. We don't want a standing army. A navy, well, maybe will, because it was a different time then. So what happened was the 1033 program, as part of the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, said, hey, governments, Boise, Idaho, LaGrange, Texas, Collinsville, Illinois, East McKeesport, Pennsylvania, how would you like an MRAP? How would you like a truck, basically a bomb-proof, IED-resistant truck? It costs between $700,000 and $800,000, which, by the way, will tear up your streets, will destroy your asphalt. But how would you like this? Oh, we'd love it. How would you love automatic weapons, Kevlar, military equipment? We have surplus. We'd love to give this to you. Okay, that's the 1033 program. Next thing you know, we go into your town, and we take a 20-year-old young man, and police are wonderful by nature, but there is a little boy aspect to it. There is a little, they shoot him up in the guns and the badges and the lights, and, it's... And all of a sudden, we take Sheriff Andy, and we turn him into a RoboCop. And we say, here, put this on. Wow, look at you. Shave your head. Give me that buzz cut, the mirrored glasses, the helmet. And you're going to always wear military outfits all the time. You're going to lose that distinction. And what you're seeing is the systematic militarization of the police in this transfer. It's the most and to show you how idiotic Americans are, they don't understand that that's a problem.
They think they're being protected. In other words, like we were talking before, they're so scared of the invisible fear that we can't see, that's been, propaganda all over the place about it. We don't know what it is, but it's there, so please protect us and do whatever you have to do, whether it's tanks and machine guns, to stand on every corner if necessary, whatever it takes to keep us feeling safe.
Right. And they, talk to somebody from another country. Talk to somebody from a country, third world, or somebody who knows what fascistic regimes are. Somebody who does not like to see automatic weapons. Somebody who does not, I remember when I was a kid, people would go to Spain or Europe and come back and say, boy, at the airport, there's police with machine guns. Really? Wow. Now we have them. What happened? Because of 9/11. 9/11 changed everything. Everything. Yeah. On that day, on that Tuesday, so many aspects of our liberty, our protections, all went the way of the Patriot Act. We lost our mind that day. And we're still feeling the results of that to this day,
very
sadly.
Sad. What would you say every American should be concerned about, not only regarding navigating through the current events of finances in our country, but in general? I would like to see change. And I think some of your questions are a starting point, that they can start to ask these questions. You don't have to believe anything. I always say on my show, whoever comes on, whatever expert, never take what anyone says right off of, go research it for yourself, discover for yourself.
Precisely. That's why I'm telling you, Christina, I want your listeners and your your followers and your acolytes and minions and your students. I want them to. I'm not telling them what to do. Look it up yourself. Go look. I'm not making this up. Just check this. I'm not. One of the things which I think is the most important, and in fact, if you want to talk to people about this, bring up UFOs. They will think you're out of your mind. What are you, crazy? I mean, what? UFOs? Oh, come on. Please. Why would our government keep that quiet from us?
Yeah. Well, that drives me crazy too, because Lionel, UFO is unidentified flying object, and of course the government could be testing unidentified flying objects, so of course they can exist.
Well, they also don't. There's something that occurred. The Vatican is very interesting. The Vatican. I'm very familiar with the Catholic Church, and the Vatican's different because there is no other corollary to the Vatican. The Vatican is a country that has diplomatic relations. It's different. The Lutherans don't have that. Anyway, so it's different. The Vatican astronomer not only endorses the notion of extraterrestrials and extra life, but even posits the fact that they may not be subject to original sin. Do you know what that would do to the American Christian population? If I said, oh, by the way, these people, whoever they are, in numbers that are billions, I don't know, they don't have original sin. They don't have to, when they die, they go straight to heaven. They don't have to be born again. You do. We do. We're inferior to them. Do you know what that would do? Forget, no issue would matter. Think about this. If all of a sudden tomorrow something happened where everybody said, oh my God, it's true. Imagine, whatever that circumstance was, they landed, whatever. I guarantee you, the Super Bowl, Kim Kardashian, Deflategate, storms, elections, none of that would matter. None of it. Because for the first time, we would say, oh my God. Hey, do you hear about the Kardashians? Who cares about the Kardashians? This would change everything. Next, imagine if that ever happened, where imagine, for example, as we say in law, assume arguendo, Palestinians were to turn to Israelis, which who are often sometimes Palestinian Arabic, and they said, what are we doing? Or Indians and Pakistanis, what are we doing? What, brother, sister, earthling, what if nationalistic jurisdictional differences just disappeared? What if somebody were to say, oh, by the way, earthlings, do you guys, we've noticed what you're doing, and we noticed that you fly these really crude rockets. Do you really burn fuel? Are you really doing that? Yes. We want to show you something. We're going to show you anti-gravitic propulsion, or Tesla-free energy, or fusion by using hydrogen and helium, which is in abundance. That stuff you have on your planet, oil, is irrelevant. What do you think would happen to Saudi Arabia, to OPEC, to the petrodollar, if that ever happened? So now ask yourself, why would the government ever want to keep that quiet? And the next question people have to ask is, well, is there evidence of this? Absolutely. Not in this country, because we're worried about Deflategate, the Kardashians, snow. We're worried about the new Cronut, viral videos. We're worried about neck tattoos, selfies, Facebook, Twitter, me, this narcissistic world of self-indulgence. So we don't care. So, so there are so many, the issues, I could just go on. Vaccines, Monsanto, GMOs, there's no end to this. None of this is being, believe me, the dollar and Glass-Steagall and derivatives, that's the least of our problems.
You're right. Yeah, and that's an interesting way to put it, because if aliens landed tomorrow and we could all see it like an Independence movie, and bam, you cannot hide this puppy, it's right in front of you. everything that we think is important would go out the window and be inconsequential. It would be like, okay, now we need to band together. What the heck is this big thing that's, what does it want? Is it going to kill us or what? So yeah, you're right. I mean, all of these differences in this fighting and this and that, it really, at the end of the day, is inconsequential because we're all one people. We're all human.
And that would change everything. No more. Think about this. If you said to somebody, if somebody from another planet were to come, let's say this person, and you said, what do we have? He said, well, we've got men and women, adults and children, black, white, brown, LGBT, old, young, men, women, northern, southern, eastern, European, American, Asian, African, Jewish, Christian, Muslim. I can go through the distinctions: poor, rich, young. I'm not even done yet. I'm going to talk about people. I can say where you're from, handicapped, healthy, insured, uninsured. Go down the list. We are so, and this person would say, wow. And you say, oh, by the way, I'm just describing my city. I'm not even talking about the world. That's just here. We are a people that celebrates difference, but not difference in terms of uniqueness. Not, Christina and her unique talent, but no. Christina, the woman who doesn't understand Christian, the man who doesn't understand the Jew and the Christian and the men and the poor and the young. We love to say, how many times have you had diversity? Celebrate diversity. Diversity is a way of saying, oh, we're all different. Celebrate the differences. What about the similarities? What do you call that? Who was talking about commonality? No, it's diversity, which sounds terrific, but forget money, forget war and police. Just look at your neighbors, look at your town, look at your university, where you work. If you have a corporation, you have an HR department, human resources, to determine whether people are getting along okay. So that and all of that ends if some bigger problem were to arise. So anyway, it's, look, it comes down to this. Sometimes you have to know when to use the microscope. Other times you have to know how to use the telescope. If you want to really freak out, let's look at a drop of pond water, put it under the microscope, and look at this world that exists right there. Now, let's get a telescope, look in the heavens. Sometimes if you go and you see a mosaic, go and look at, just walk up and see one individual tile. Sometimes you got to back up, sometimes you get close. That's how you inspect things in general. Sometimes you got to know when to back up, look, get too close. Don't lose your mind over it, but get the big picture versus the individual. So I hope what we've done is thoroughly confuse your listenership, but that's the way it is. I love complexity. I'm sorry, I don't make any
It's
apologies.
awesome though, because really at the end of it all, and I had a woman come on last year who is a penguin expert, and I love those birds. But when she talked about how they live their life socially, because they have a very complex social structure in their environment. It's basically like all the rest of the beings on this planet. They're trying to survive, feed their families, make babies, be happy. I mean, maybe we would define happy from our own perspective, but really, we're all here for the same thing, just to survive and live the best life we possibly can.
Well, it's funny you say that. I believe that children up to the age of maybe 6, 7, they are perfect human beings. They don't know any hate. They don't know any prejudice. They don't know any. They don't know anything. They just love. And when they fall down, they laugh. They don't get embarrassed. They hold their parents' hand and they kiss and they love. And they're not. And sometimes they're so honest. They'll say, "Mommy, why is he fat? Why is he black?" And they don't mean anything by it. And we say, "Shh, don't say that." And we teach them embarrassment and feeling stupid. And, animals, I look at sometimes what a dog can do, and I say, why? And I'm being serious about this. Why am I superior to this animal? Why? Well, because you could think, how do I know? What, in the scheme of things, if there is a God, why would God say, oh, you're much better? Why? Well, because you can think and the dog can't. I think the dog can think. I think the penguin can think. I think it's amazing how roaches can withstand nuclear attack, that underneath the world there's microorganisms and fungus. And so why am I that terrific? We kill each other. Do you have any pets? Do you have a dog or a cat?
I have a cat right now. Yep.
Cats are exceedingly interesting. First thing that a cat will never do is kill another cat. Ever. Ever. People say, well, they're not equipped. Oh, yes, they are. They could if they wanted to. They don't know the meaning of it. Cats will never. Dogs really don't do this unless there's something. Unless they're trained. Now let's just take your cat. Your cat does not kill its species. It's already superior to us.
Yeah.
Cats, because I'm very familiar with them. I want to notice when a cat looks at you sometimes, and looks at you. Now, the cat has no trigeminal nerve, has no expression, nothing. If cat's face is, unless it snarls. Look at how that cat speaks to you almost telepathically.
Yep.
Look at how that cat is communicating with you, and you're looking at it, and we're superior to it. Why?
Yeah, we allude that language makes us more intelligent because we do that thing called talking, which isn't 80% of language isn't even the words out of your mouth. It's the tonality, the body language, the everything behind it. Yeah, but Lionel, that was very interesting what you mentioned prior about kids and their, being perfect human beings before the age of 6 or 7, because I had an experience a number of years ago where I was in a neighborhood was mostly black, and I was moving out of that neighborhood into another neighborhood, and I was coming out of the apartment building, and I dropped my box full of clothes, and it spewed all over the street. And a kid in the street, like 5 years old, came rushing over to try to help me put the stuff back in the box. Her mom came over and said, "Don't do that. Get away from her." And I could see, and I could see in her eyes, it was like she wasn't one of us. That division, that polarity, she's not one of us. How dare you help her? And at that moment, she looked shamed, she looked hurt, and she's like, "What did I do wrong, Mommy?" And at that moment, she taught racism.
Oh, I know. And there's a difference. And they don't even realize. But with that beauty of their questions, it comes to, the thing I love the most is sometimes if you see a kid walking around and he bumps his head, especially if they're little, they start walking around, and you hear that thud, that unmistakable sound of like a cantaloupe hitting a floor. It's like, oh no, you know what's going to happen. And what adults will do is they'll look at each other and say, "Don't react. Just look around. Don't look at the child. Just get it. Don't look. Just keep walking. Don't react." Now the kid will say, "Ow, that hurt," and then move on. Now, versus you doing the, "Oh no, are you okay?" Now you've just scared the child.
Yeah.
So the person will take then pain, fear, combine the two. And from now on, when you're hurt, this is how I react. You've just cemented, and sometimes they will cry because they hurt. That happens too. But you've just created a connection they would have never made. That's why you should never spank a child. You are creating, I don't want to get too deep here, but you are doing some things sometimes to children, especially when you're involving sensitive parts of their body. And you may be giving them conflicting, concomitant messages that ultimately later could cause psychosocial, psychosexual confusion because they're kids. So that's why they're so perfect. Leave them alone. Just don't destroy them. They'll be destroyed enough on their own, but they're so perfect. They wouldn't think about hitting anybody. Sometimes they do, but they want to play. They run. They're not sedentary. They love to say, tell me a story. And what do kids love to do? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Stop asking me why. Why, Mommy? Why? Because. What do you mean because? Why? Stop asking me why. Stop being inquisitive. Stop thinking. Leave me alone. Your questions you're annoying me. Think about what we do to children. Oh.
Wow. Well, this brings to me how we could wrap this up into solve and work and making a better future financially and otherwise in our country starts with our children and treating them with respect as human beings and realizing to not create polarity between other individuals that we might, animals and people, with our children so that they don't grow up feeling shame, guilt, differences between other individuals, which then creates, well, I'm better than them and such. And we could create a better world and better finances.
And what you should do is, don't take my word for it, but one of the greatest inventions is YouTube. But just put into your YouTube, because they're documentaries, Federal Reserve. Just start. Don't worry about it. Just instead of watching some stupid TV show, get your iPad or whatever it is, and just watch this. Then keep going. Your education begins now. Ask the simplest questions. Most stupid. What is money? What is gold? What is the gold standard? Who determines what? Why would we never want a euro? What happens when you destroy currency? What is a derivative? Please look up derivatives. Look up Glass-Steagall. Look up the Wall Street sales tax, the Tobin tax. And are taxes a problem? Look up, for example, the different schools. The American School of Economics. The American School of Economics is Alexander Hamilton, Casey, Friedrich List. Look at the Austrian School, von Mises, Hayek, the Mont Pelerin Group. This is Ron Paul. This is a more austere. Mm-hmm. This is the Libertarian School. Look at that. This is just economics. Look at the history. Go and Google YouTube and look at the interview where Alan Greenspan was asked who can overrule the Fed chairman, and he said no one. Now, I just gave you 20, 30 different things. They're not in a library. You don't need a library. You have this at your fingertips. It's right here. Do not think that, well, I've never studied economics. No, just start watching. Watch lectures. Pay attention. Go. Just however you take off from your journey, just do it. And then you'll say, oh, start with what is the Federal Reserve? And then tomorrow, ask your friends, as I've told you to do it. Say, Bob, you're a pretty smart guy. Let me ask you a question. Because if anybody would know this, you would. What's the Federal Reserve? And watch their face. I mean, ask somebody running for office. You have any questions? Yes, you in the back. Yes, my name is Christina. Yes. What is your position on the Federal Reserve and fractional reserve banking? What? Just do. It's easy. It's not. You don't have to have a degree in this, but just start with your own. Be an autodidact, self-taught. It's easy. You don't have to get a degree in this to be 100% smarter than you were yesterday. Just learn one thing. That's all.
Yeah, I love that, Lionel. As you had mentioned prior, we kind of train out of our kids the why, asking questions. It's awesome. You don't have to have a degree in it, and you don't have to think, well, what would it possibly do to my life to know these things that aren't important to my everyday life? Well, actually, a lot of these things do pertain to your everyday life, and they can make your life better, allow you to make a valid choice in your life.
And to realize how little you know.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. I love words, and I love to collect vocabulary words, and I love arcane words and recondite words and long words and short words and sesquipedalian words. And what happens is, if you ever do this, you will immediately realize how few words you know, and it's the most depressing thing. And I think to myself, why did I ever start this? Yeah. I never realized how stupid I am because of all the words I don't know. I was happy not knowing what I didn't know. But in retrospect, that's part of the journey. I'm like that kid who keeps falling down and making the mistake. I don't mind making the mistake. I like learning. I'll be 100, I hope, and still think I'm not even close to learning everything. I still want to figure this out. We don't know everything. The world, the universe. Get used to it. Enjoy it. Embrace it. Say it loud. I don't know anything.
I love that, Lionel.
Yes.
At a present lecture I went to a couple months ago, the guy who started out the lecture said, the most dangerous people are the ones that say, I know.
Oh, yeah.
And at first I was like, what is he talking about? He's correct, though. We often come into any situation thinking our minds are made up already. And that's dangerous because we block ourselves off from being our best creative self in life and to giving our fullest and to making choices from an informed place.
You know, I'm a lawyer by profession. And let me give you and your viewers or your listeners or whoever, your audience, your minions, this is the greatest bit of advice. Here's the answer to every legal question that anybody could ever ask you. And I will save you 3 years of law school and private practice. It's very simple. The answer to every legal question, can I sue? Is this murder? Is this against the law? Can I get a divorce? Is this grounds for this? Can I probate this will? Is this the estate? Is this a valid contract? The answer is, it depends. And it's the answer for everything. It's life. It depends. There is no black and white. There is no Manichaean left and right. There is no right or wrong. The world is full of gray. It depends. There's no, and be happy with that. That's as close to, as they say, that's good enough for government work. You're not going to get anything closer than that. Whether it's love or death. Some things are pretty easy. Is he dead? Yes. You don't say, is she pregnant? Is he dead? It depends. No. There is some, in that rare instance. But other than that, the gray is what's funny. It's don't worry about that.
That is an awesome end to our conversation. Thank you so much, Lionel of Lionel Media, for joining us on Savvy Central Radio today.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Christina.
Winty is an aviation-themed t-shirt business designing and printing aviation-related graphics for pilots, aviation businesses, and aviation enthusiasts worldwide. Winty can print 1 or 100 garments upon request within a reasonably low turnaround time, including a one-stop shop solution for all your graphic art needs, from logos, business cards, book covers, and banners. Contact winty.com today in order to find out how your design could become a reality. There are some exciting changes coming this 2015 for Savvy. We'll start videocasting some of our interviews. Also, stay tuned for a new book presently being worked on by my co-author and I, Karen Rowe. We'll talk about how to bridge the gap from worker bee to business owner, and the lessons we've learned on our journey to entrepreneurship. In addition, this spring we'll start live interview opportunities in Manhattan, which will later be aired on iHeartRadio, a new mix to business networking and interviews. For those interested in participating as a paid sponsor or interviewee, contact us at 718-713-2289 or savvycentralradio@gmail.com. Here's to 2015 being the best year yet for all of us.
Welcome to the Racing to Success Minute with Nadine Lajoie. Be yourself in business. Why a lot of people are just artificial, they are faking it, they are not really doing in business what they do in life. For example, if you are doing a lot of jokes and having a lot of fun in your life, do the same in your business. Don't try to be somebody that you are not, because people will feel it, and it will be harder for you to close the sale, to have more clients, to make more money. And if you don't make enough money, and if you are not authentic and be yourself, that will be hard for you to have the lifestyle that you want for you and your family. So be yourself inside and outside of the business, and it will be so much better. This is Nadine at NadineRacing.com.
Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/SavvyCentralRadio. Over 150,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.